Hi kids, today we'll be learning how to create pop-up cards. So I hope you have all your material ready. Let's begin. This is the card we're going to be making for today's class. So excited to show you all how to do it. First, you take an A4 sheet of paper or a card paper and fold it into half. So use a scissor to cut this paper exactly into half along the fold line. Once you're done cutting it, fold this half again into half. So this is going to be the size of your card. So use a scale and around 1 centimeter from either end longitudinally, you draw a straight line. So two straight lines on the right and on the left, 1 centimeter from the end. Then you fold the card, and on the outside, right in the center, you draw two parallel lines which are around 4 centimeters, or basically around the size of two fingers kept together. So the two lines inside on either side and outside in the middle. Now that you have opened it, you draw curved lines on one side to form a cloud. So keep the white sheet aside for now and take colored paper, preferably 2 shades of greens. I'm marking it on to make sure that I have the exact length, and I'm just going to draw a curved line. That's very simple. It doesn't have to be exactly like this, it's just a random curved line. So I'll use a scissor and cut this structure that I've just drawn. So I'm done cutting it and it fits exactly. That's perfect. I'm going to do the same thing with another shade of green, but this green I'll make it slightly smaller than the previous green. Same point, but slightly smaller. The shape also doesn't have to be perfectly the same, it just has to be like a rough curvy line connecting the two dots. And once you're done with this, cut this as well. So I'm done with both and they are a perfect size, they fit perfectly. So that's nice. Just a little trimming. So now I'm going to use glue and stick the two green cutouts together. And once I'm done doing this, I'll stick this green thing on the white card so that it fits. This fits perfectly, so I'm going to stick this on the white section right now. So yeah, that's done. Down and the cloud shape on top. Use a scissor and cut along the line that's along the cloud shape on top, along the green structure down below. And this is how it will look finally. When you fold it, you remember the two lines you drawn in the middle, you cut along that, just along those two parallel lines. Once you're done with this, you should be able to fold this cut inside, just like I've done. Hold the structure and press it properly on all the three fold lines. So when you open, this part is supposed to pop, and it will be the structure that holds whatever you want to pop up. So it's kind of like the structural support for the pop-up card. So now I'm going to keep that aside and take a blue sheet of paper and fold this paper into half. And this is going to be the outside part of your card. So I'm going to cut the half into half again and fold it again so that it's the same size as the previous white paper. So now that this is folded, it's going to be the outside part of your card and it fits exactly. It's perfect. I'll use a yellow sheet of paper to make a sun or a moon in the background. But just before I do that, I'm going to take a strip of green paper and use it to make grass. So now that you have this strip, you fold it twice. And the reason I'm folding it is so that I can draw the grass structure only on one and cut it on all four together. So it'll be easier for me and faster for me to draw and cut the grass. So I'm drawing a quick a grass segment, and I'll use a scissor and cut all the four papers that are together. So now that this is finely cut, I can open it up and you see that the entire stretch has been converted into a grass segment. So what I want to do is stick this grass just above the clouds. So I'm going to first just measure how much is required and I'll cut that segment off. So now I've cut exactly how much is required, so I'm going to stick this on the cloud. Make sure that you pass the grass segment from behind that pop-up segment, otherwise the pop-up segment is going to get stuck. And this is how it's going to look when it's finally stuck. So now we have an accented grass that's in front of the cloud. So that's a bit of detail which looks really nice. And the remaining piece of grass we can use to place in front of the pumpkin at the end. So for the next step, I'm going to use the yellow paper to cut a round circle which will end up being the sun. You can either draw the circle freehand like I'm doing, or use a compass or a small bottle cap or a bangle to get it done. Once you're done, just use a scissor and cut it. So the yellow circle will be placed behind the clouds, and now that's a really beautiful scene. We'll stick it in a bit, but before we do that, let's draw and cut the pumpkin. So I'm using orange paper for this, and remember that the pumpkin should not be too big. So I'm going to make the pumpkin size approximately 3 fingers width. So using a pencil to mark 3 fingers, which is going to be the bases of the size of my pumpkin. Then, like you had learned in the previous video on doodling, you draw a very narrow oval and narrow C's on either side. So 2 to 3 C's on the right, 2 to 3 C's on the left, and then a stem, just like the ones that are in apples and mangoes, etc. So you can draw any of the faces which you had learned in the previous video. Let's draw a happy face. So a happy face is 2 triangles with the apex facing up, a nose triangle with the apex facing up, and a smiley face. I'm also going to add in a few teeth to add in the details. And finally, when you're done, shade the eyes, the nose, and the mouth to give it depth, so that the pumpkin appears as if it is cut open and there's darkness through the hole that you can see. So now that we have done filling the spaces with black, let's add in a little more details. You can use pencil colors or sketch pens for this, or even crayons, oil pastels, or anything really that you have. So I'll be using green for the stalk or the stem, and just fill in the color with green. Next, I'll be outlining the pumpkin. So I'm using a brown, or you can even use a dark orange to outline this. Especially if you're using a sketch pen, I suggest you use an orange. But if you're using a pencil color, brown would be a nice thing to do. And once you're done outlining this thing, you can use orange and kind of shade it only at the edges. But it's okay even if you don't do this step, but I'm doing it for a little more detail. So now the pumpkin is perfect and ready to be cut. So make sure you're careful while cutting the pumpkin. It's better to cut a small rough segment around the pumpkin and then, cut it in detail slowly. So now that the pumpkin's ready, I'm gonna stick everything together. First, I'll be sticking the sun in the background. Over that, this segment of the clouds, the grass, and then the pumpkin on it. So sticking this to the bottom half of the card. So I'm going to stick the sun behind the clouds. I'm going to stick the top part of this section, that is the clouds, and it will partially cover the sun. And finally, it's time to stick the pumpkin on that the pop-up segment. So I'm just going to put very little Fevicol on the area that's green, that's popping out, and I'm going to stick the pumpkin on that. Make sure you hold it tight for a while, and that's it. It looks perfect. Just one last thing to do is to stick that remaining grass segment in front of the pumpkin to add in a little more detail, and the card will be done. Wow, isn't this beautiful? You can write whatever you want on the front side of the card and it pops up. I hope you enjoyed this class. You can utilize this technique to create so many different types of cards with having anything you like pop up. I have a few examples of other cards which I've done. You can feel free to add in as much detailing as you want on all the cards. These dots as stars, or you can put a silhouette structure on it like you've learned in the previous videos. And really anything you want can be added, because it's basically whatever makes you happy. This is some of the other cards that I made using the bat that you learned in the doodling video, and this is whatever you learned in the silhouette video and the watercolor backgrounds.